Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome into Chicago Bears Now. My name is Harrison Graham. Shout out to all of you for hanging out in the chat before we even got started, like LA Cop, Jim H. Allen, Christian, Jaden, Neville, and everybody else. That makes you guys real ones. We're 3 days away from the Thomas Brown era beginning as the Bears take on the 49ers. We got some injury updates we're going to get into. Some Jim Harbaugh rumors have resurfaced, dating back to last offseason, and Colin Cowherd had some interesting things to say about the Bears, so we're going to dive into that as well, take your questions. Busy show, as always. We got producer Colin hanging out on the scenes. Shout out your city. Colin, can the Bears get back on track now that Matt Eberflus is out of the building?
As the once great philosopher Kevin Garnett said, anything is possible, baby. Oh, no, I just feel so good, man. It's a fresh start. Again, a new era with Thomas Brown starting against the 49ers. I'm all in, man. I'm so excited to see what happens on Sunday. I'm interested to see, obviously, he's got a little bit extra preparation given that the Bears played on Thanksgiving, so he's got a little more prep time. It's going to be something to watch, man.
I'm glad they're playing games against teams, too, that aren't just irrelevant. Like, I'm glad they're not playing the Jags this week, right? Like, I know the Niners are beat up and everything, but still on the road against San Francisco. You still have your three divisional opponents again that you just went toe-to-toe with. You got Seattle on a short week the day after Christmas. So, like, even if they don't matter a ton for the Bears' playoff chances, which are mostly dead, barring a chaotic scenario where they went out and get help, they could still play in games that matter for other teams. So I think that's going to be a good litmus test for this team's character down the stretch, and obviously Thomas Brown, and as he makes his pitch to try and get this job permanently. We got Marcus here in Dallas, Bill in Cincinnati, Jeff in Nashville. Let's see, KO Sports Talk in L.A., Brad in Heron, Illinois. Let's see, Jacob in Scottsdale, Arizona. Justin Fields in the chat in Pittsburgh. Do we think that is the Matt Nagy, Matt Eberflus character, Colin? I'd say there's a 50-50 chance.
I'm not even kidding. I'm pretty sure I also saw Ryan Poles in our watch party recently. There's a bunch of different.
Remember the Kevin Warren account?
Oh, yeah.
Santana in Jordan, Minnesota. Christian in Middlebury, Indiana. We got Nick93 in Davenport. We'll get to D. Jeremiah Warren super chat here in just a few moments. Alan in Chicago, Beth in Cincinnati. Appreciate everybody for hanging out with us here today. All right, before we get to some other talking points and to that super chat to get on the show, we do have a few sponsors we got to thank, starting with Game Time. You want to go to a game? We'll go watch the Bears here in a couple of weeks when they're back at home at Soldier Field, or who knows, maybe you're in the Bay Area and want to go check them out, or if you want to go to a Bulls game, Blackhawks, comedy show, concert, anything else, Game Time is the place for you. That is where you get your tickets online, and everything requires digital purchase these days, so you might as well do it with the best, and that is Game Time. Create an account today. Use code CHATSPORTS to get $20 off your first purchase only. Terms do apply there. They're going to make it much easier for you when purchasing your tickets. Also, Prize Picks. If you want to get in on all of the action, we're getting toward the end of the football season, which is sad to think about, but I got basketball, hockey, other sports ongoing as well. Set your daily fantasy lineups with Prize Picks at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS. The way it works is simple. You pick two or more players and choose more or less on the stat projections provided by Prize Picks. When you play for $5 for a first-time customer, you're going to get $50 for free into your account. Check it out, prizepicks.com/CLNS. And then last week we got Rocket Money. Stay on top of your finances. Scale back on your spending with Rocket Money. They'll help you cancel any unwanted subscriptions you may have. Believe me, you probably have a few, because most Americans think they're spending like $60, $65 per month on subscriptions. That number is closer to $300. Don't believe me? Sign up at rocketmoney.com/bears now. And if you want to get rid of any of those subscriptions, identify which ones you want. A few clicks later, they will take care of the rest. rocketmoney.com/bears now. Link is in the live chat for them as well. Shout out to our sponsors, Rocket Money, Prize Picks, and Game Time. All right, we got D. Jeremiah Warren. Appreciate the 5. He says, yo, Harrison, how much in Super Chats today for you to take a high-dosage edible before the next game day show. The people want Harrison Grams.
Love
I've never gotten a super chat like this before.
We had one what was it, on Monday? Like a kind of weird super chat like this, where somebody got like super high and they were asking us how to fix it or something.
I don't even know. Definitely had some weird ones. I don't even know what that would be like to just rip one of those before a game. Probably shouldn't do that, as I am still working technically on game days. So yeah, that's it'd be fun. It'd be fun. Who knows? Wouldn't rule anything out in the future, but I can't sit here and say I can commit to that here at this moment. But appreciate the 5, and if you guys have any other wild ideas, I am down to hear them. Cornelius says, my dream coaching tandem that would never happen is Ben Johnson as head coach and Bill Belichick as defensive coordinator / assistant head coach, LOL. You're right. It would never happen. By the way, Bill Belichick just interviewed for the North Carolina head coaching job. Now, more nuggets have come from that. Apparently, it's unlikely to happen. They were impressed with him, but given his age, probably doesn't really make sense for either side, yada, yada. Colin, I got to be honest, Bill Belichick at the college level, could you imagine him dealing with a student reporter asking some question at a press conference? He's not coaching. Oh, by the way, we also have one of our newest employees hanging out in here, Avery Pennington. She makes a good point that we talked about out in the bullpen. Would Bill Belichick's 24-year-old girlfriend be hanging out with girlfriends of his players on the team? I say yes. So I don't think that's a route you can go down if you're North Carolina.
Yeah. No, I mean, that would be – I mean, it would be something, honestly, if you made that happen. I guess it's interesting that he took the interview. Like, I understand why North Carolina did and ultimately, like, why they didn't hire him, but it's interesting that he took that interview.
Yeah, I mean, there's no downside, I guess, for either side. I mean, if you're North Carolina, why not interview arguably the greatest NFL coach ever? If you're Bill Belichick, you're probably not getting NFL interviews for another month or two, so why not get some reps in? And who knows, maybe they sell you on something that you're super interested in. But, yeah, I guess you never say never, but I can't imagine him coaching at the collegiate level at 72 years old. That does not seem very likely. All right, who will be the next Bears head coach in 2025? Is it Thomas Brown? Is it someone else? Is it Bill Belichick? Who knows? What say you? We got people contributing to the fund, Colin. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. It is. Umar says Ben. Kyrie says Shanahan. Jacob says Shanahan. They're all in on trading for Shanahan, Colin. We've talked about that a couple times here.
Yeah, I mean, look.
It's a long shot, let's be honest.
It would be, yes, him or Sean McVay. It would be an incredible just storyline of epic proportions if they somehow were to land one of those two. But, I mean.
LeBron.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, now we've lost the plot.
We're off the rails today. Speaking of off the rails, here's my contribution from Dallas Chris. All right. Listen, I don't know what the number is, but I guess if it keeps going up, you never know. You never know.
Never say never.
Never say never, just like Belichick to North Carolina. Caleb saved us. It's worth 10 beer bongs. I mean, listen. It'd be something. It'd be something. We have someone that could get the hookup, I'm sure, in the office. Yeah. There's a couple plugs that I've been told about. Chris says Joe Brady. Bruce says Ben Johnson. Caleb Williams' dad. Yeah, I don't think Carl Williams is coaching the Chicago Bears, but I guess you never know. Speaking of never know, I guess you never know. We'll get to Dennis in a second. Get those score predictions in for Bears 49ers. I actually like the Bears 28-20 this week. I think they go to San Francisco and win. We'll see on DJ Moore and DeAndre Swift's status. We'll get to the injury report in a minute. That could throw a wrench into my prediction, but I'm hopeful they will play, albeit they have not practiced this week. But McCaffrey's on IR. Jordan Mason's on IR. Trent Williams has been out. Bosa's been out. They've got a ton of injuries over there, not playing good ball. The Bears have actually been playing decent, Colin. They just haven't been able to finish games. So I actually like their chances in this one.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, you know who I'm rolling with. So I really do think the Bears have a shot. I mean, if they continue the offensive trajectory that they've been going, continue to improve. San Francisco really has just been a mess the last couple of weeks and really all season, but especially now with their injuries and everything else going on in the building. I could really see the Bears winning. I'll go Bears 28, San Francisco 21.
Dave makes a good point, saying he's concerned about the running backs. Swift and Roschon did not practice again today. If they're both out, that could be trouble, because then you're rolling into a game with Travis Homer and Demetric Felton. That is not exactly an ideal tandem, but get the arm loose, Caleb, because it may require it. Dennis says, what up, Harrison and Colin? I DM'd Colin an off-season plan. I think there's no holes and realistic. Would love for it to be shared to the chat. Did you see this, Colin? Can you confirm?
I'm looking at it right now, actually.
All right, let's hear it. Let's hear Dennis's plan.
I will say, very well organized. I mean,
okay.
Look at this.
I like that.
He's like...
bullet points and everything?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
He literally, indentations and everything. He said he divided up into
You could work here with that organization,
yeah,
Dennis.
You could. So he has 3 categories: staff, free agency, and the draft.
Okay, let's hear it.
Staff, hirings and firings. Fire Chris Morgan, hire Ben Johnson as head coach, and hire assistant offensive line coach for Detroit. Hire Robert Saleh as DC. Then he moves on to free agency.
Okay, I like that first plan.
Re-sign Coleman Shelton to a 1-year deal. Re-sign Keenan Allen to a 1-year deal. Sign Trey Smith to a 4-year deal. Sign Ryan Kelly to a 2-year deal. Sign Tulano Huafonga from the Niners for a 3-year deal. Sign Nick Chubb for a 2-year deal. Note, Smith and Kelly will replace Jenkins and Shelton as starters, instantly bolstering the O-line. Signing Chubb paired with Swift will give Johnson a similar scheme for how he utilizes a bruiser/elusive combo with Monty and Gibbs. With an improved O-line, the foundation of Detroit can be implemented with Chicago. Brisker is a question with health, and San Francisco cannot afford Huafonga. And then he's got a draft section, too.
Well, the only thing I would push back on the free agency is if you're signing Ryan Kelly, you don't really need Coleman Shelton.
Right.
Like, he could start somewhere else probably. So I would say that. But, all right, let's hear draft real quick.
Draft. Round 1, draft Campbell or Banks to play left guard and possibly kick him to left tackle after Braxton Jones' contract year. Round 2, trade up for defensive tackle Walter Nolan from Mississippi, the best defensive tackle that could be available and a great run stopper. Round 2, draft Princely.
Uman Milan.
Yes,
the
from Mississippi. Instant team chemistry with Nolan, paired with Dexter and Sweat, and would complete the defense. And then I'm assuming this is round 3. Draft Parker Brailsford, a center who could learn from Kelly and Shelton, who could use some development and eventually come in with a starting role as a swing center/offensive guard.
Yeah, again, I think in that scenario, he's just your backup, and you don't need Shelton in that situation. So those are all good ideas. I mean, you're not going to make all that happen, obviously, but those are some good ideas. I like it, Dennis. Dennis also said this. By the way, is Pete Carroll not an option for any team? I saw his name get brought up the other day. I mean, isn't it just the Belichick conversation? It's like, yeah, he had his run. He's one of the better coaches, especially of his generation, but he's over 70. Like, yeah. I want a long-term solution. I don't want a 70-year-old coming in for 3 to 5 years, and then you just have to start over again. Jay Zilla, I need an H. We're not even allowed to do that on air, so it would have to be before, I guess. But listen, you guys are pushing a narrative today, and who knows? Narratives turn into reality sometimes. Jacob, would you trade 2 firsts and 2 seconds for Shanahan? That's a lot.
That's a lot.
I don't know. Like, I'm desperate, Colin. That's pretty far. Would I trade 2 firsts? Probably. But 2 1s and 2 2s, and I know someone will be like, what's 2 more picks? Well, eventually your roster, like, you build depth by drafting and drafting well. So you give away – I mean, I think the Rams are a good example of this, Colin, is like, yeah, they got their Super Bowl, but, like, trading all those early picks, like, now that the depth just isn't there. Yep. And it's also true – honestly, it's true with the Niners too. Them going all in on Trey Lance, like – say what you want, it's kind of caught up to them now. Their depth is not that strong. All of a sudden, their frontline players have injuries, and where's the depth? Well, it went with all that draft capital.
Exactly.
I mean, that's where it went.
Yeah, and again, it's not something that you would expect in the short term, obviously, but long term, I mean, it could have lasting effects. I mean, think about it. If San Francisco hadn't traded those picks and had 3 first-round talents, again, it's not even a given that all of them would have been hits, but they would have been in a better position potentially than they are now with none of those picks.
And listen, I'm desperate. Like I'm the fact that I'm in the camp of let's trade for a coach if one of them frees up speaks volumes. But like you can't mortgage everything. Like you have to like. I feel like offering 2 ones for a team that's already willing to listen is pretty good. Like I mean, if they want more, I just don't know how much more you can give. Like 2 1s and 2 2s. So a first this year, first next year. Maybe you keep one of your 2s this year and you trade another one next year. I mean, that's a lot, man. I don't know. I don't know if I can go that far. Corey Griffin, do you see the Bears bringing in a former coach like Saban or Carroll or someone along the lines as an advisor for the new coach? Maybe a Pete Carroll would be willing to do that. Why would Saban do that? Saban is chilling on college game day, and he goes to every Bama game still and is hanging out. And he probably makes more money from ESPN than he would as an advisor of an NFL team, and it's way less work. So I actually don't. Maybe Pete Carroll, I could see it. Maybe is like your senior defensive analyst or something like that, advisor to the coach type of guy. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's that necessary either. Like if you get the right coach, you'll have the right coach. Like I don't know if a 71-year-old guy is making that big of a difference. Joel, Thomas Brown reminds me of Mike Tomlin. He's a young offensive coach. Knows how he wants team to play. Coachability, accountability, dependability. Yeah, I've liked a lot of what he said. I like what the offense has looked like since he has taken over. Now we got to see results. The offense to keep playing well. You got to win some games too. You definitely got to win some games. And I think Colin, what could determine, and not necessarily for sure him getting the job, but for him to have a chance to get the job, is not just results, but like say in 2 or 3 of these games out of the final 5, you're in a situation late where it's a 1-score game. Like how does he handle those situations? Because the last guy, say what we want about him, this team was in a lot of games. They just did not know how to handle those situations. So like, does he get that stuff cleaned up? Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean you're going to win every close game, but don't be the reason you're losing them as the coach. So I think that's where he's going to be judged the harshest is like, hey, you're up a score, down a score, final 4 minutes. What happens here? Do you have a major blunder? So, yeah, I think he's going to have to, pass those tests over the next 5 weeks.
Yeah, if anything, I'm more process over results in that regard. Because, I mean, again, the Bears are not, outside of maybe Seattle on Thursday night, like how many games are they going to be favored in the rest of the way?
Yeah, I think I saw the Seahawks. This wasn't like a betting line thing, but it was like, I think it was ESPN's win predictor thing. I think it was like Bears 48% in that one, which makes sense. It's probably like a coin flip type of game being in Chicago. Every other game, though, it's less than, I think, 40%. So they're going to be a dog the rest of the way. So, if he goes 3-2 and the process looks good and the team's improving, rallying around the guy, that's going to be pretty impressive if he can do that.
Exactly.
Sam says if we send the projected 1s and 2s or 2/3, does Dobbs come with Kyle Shanahan? Listen, we know you're the biggest Josh Dobbs guy out there. He could be thrown in, Sam. He could be thrown in. Well, let's bring Josh home.
Include Josh Dobbs with Kyle Shanahan, take it or leave it.
Yeah, I will. 2 1s and 2 2s for Shanahan? No. You throw Dobbs in the deal? I'm in. Two-Face 290 with the first time super chat. That's 5 jumping jacks for Two-Face. Shout out to him. And add a message next time, Two-Face.
Yeah.
Add a message next time. DeJounte, every dollar donated. You guys are crazy, bro. Send Harrison to the moon. I do have a 19-month-old at home. You guys are aware of that, right? Joel Gordills. I don't want him to go somewhere else. get head coach position, and we look back and say we could have had him. Hopefully these 5 weeks are great. Yeah, I mean, that's the worst case scenario, Colin, is that you let Thomas Brown walk out the building, he gets a job elsewhere and is awesome, and the guy you pick doesn't work. I mean, that's like honestly, that's like the most Bears scenario is that, well, we like this guy, but we're going to go this route, and then this route doesn't work, and Thomas Brown is the, I don't know, insert team's head coach, even if it's not this year, but a year or two down the road, and he thrives. I mean, that's the scenario that would really be bothersome, I think. So, yeah, I mean, look, I think deep down, Colin, the Bears would like to be either blown away by Thomas Brown or, honestly, the same shit continues, and then they're like, well, you kind of made the decision for us. I think what they don't want is to be stuck on the fence. Like, it was 2-3, 3-2, some good, some not so great. Team seems to like him, but we think this guy's more qualified. So, yeah, hopefully, I don't think there's almost any scenario that'll happen where you're going to be completely convinced one way or the other that he could or could not be the guy. But hopefully the pendulum slings one way or the other pretty harsh. Like that would be ideal.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in no man's zone, I mean, obviously it's not great. But, I mean, look, given everything Thomas Brown has said, it would shock me if he is as bad Eberflus is, just from a terminal, like, mindset, accountability, just the way he conducts himself.
Yeah.
I just don't see that being the way. So it's honestly more likely that he's either awesome or he's somewhere in between. And, again, even if he's somewhere in between, this 5-game, the fact that they're giving him only 5 games, again, you've mentioned it. I agree with it. It should have been way longer than this 5 games. Like,
it's a shame they didn't do that. I mean, again, they should have not last offseason, but
right.
They should have done it when they fired Waldron. Like, both should have gone. Now, maybe Thomas Brown isn't the interim in that scenario because we hadn't even seen him call plays yet. Maybe it's like Hightower and Thomas Brown's the OC, so who knows? But, like, in an ideal world, they would have pulled the plug on Eberflus and Waldron after the Patriots game. Brown would have taken over the whole ship, and we would have just seen what happened the final 8 weeks. Now, the good news is I do think the 3 games of him calling plays will also be part of the evaluation. So there is 8 games of play calling evaluation here to go off of. So I would say I don't want to say he aced that test, but I'd say he definitely passed that part of the test. If that part of it continues to be well, and then the head coach responsibility stuff goes well, going to be a pretty strong, like, little, resume boost, if you will, in terms of maybe having a leg up on some other candidates. So it's going to be interesting. Peyton Johnson, he says, I'd prefer McVay over Shanahan. You could then keep Thomas Brown as OC and get Robert Saleh to be DC since he has connection with McVay. I would also rather have McVay, if all things are equal, if I know he's in this for the long haul. That's the biggest question with McVay, because he's flirted with retirement or at least walking away a couple times now. So I think if there was any scenario, Colin, where you traded for this guy, you'd have to have some written addendum that's like, okay, you're here a minimum of 5 years or at least, or if we win a Super Bowl and you want to retire, fine, so be it. But, like, I don't think you can trade for him and then 2 years in, he's like, you know what, I do want to go do TV. I mean, that you just can't be trading picks for a guy to walk away in 2 years.
I mean, yeah, and again, it's kind of the similar thing as Saban, right? Like, once you get to that level, I mean, you're definitely not coming back. And, I mean, the fact that he's already kind of even considered it, again, he's come back. He's obviously, working a really good job for the Rams. But, yeah, I mean, it's obviously – I prefer McVay as well over Shanahan. I just think overall he's a better coach. I slightly give him the edge in terms of just as a culture guy and everything. But, yeah, no, I agree. I think you'd have to have some verbal, written something, just being like, hey, we need you at least to commit to a 5-10-year plan here that we believe in you. We'll pay you whatever. And again, you would have to pay him whatever if you're McVay. So
whatever he's making with the Rams would be the minimum of what his salary would be here, which I imagine the Rams are paying him at least $15 million a year. So it would be a lot. Jayworth 8, Jeff Bezos buying the Bears. We'll talk about this further because I got a question about this earlier as well. When we get to our mailbag, we'll talk about this. But, yeah, I don't know. There's betting odds on that. I don't know if that's just a hypothetical game Vegas is playing, but I'll tell you this, it'd be better than the McCaskies, that's for sure. Ramsey T, how much involvement would you think Caleb will have on the head coach search? I don't think that much, to be honest. I think that they'll keep him in the loop, and like if they have like they might get like certain little input from him, but like I don't think he's like in the interviews or something like that. Now there might be a scenario where you get down to the finalists or something like that, and you want to do some kind of exercise. Like I heard this idea. I thought it was pretty interesting, Colin. Did you watch the Giants Hard Knocks this offseason?
I watched bits and pieces of it. I didn't watch. I mean, I obviously.
Did you see any of the clips where like Dayball was meeting with the draft prospects at QB like Jaden Daniels and stuff and doing like little tests with him?
Yep.
I heard someone, I think Adam Hogue may have suggested this idea of like, say you get down to the finalists or whatever, and if they're offensive guys, like kind of run those exercises with these candidates with Caleb. And like, it's almost like Caleb's not really interviewing them, but like they're kind of just seeing how coach quarterback interactions would go
100%.
in terms of verbiage and all that stuff. So that I think that's interesting, but I don't think Caleb is going to be, pick this guy because of this reason. He's a rookie. Like it's not going to happen. So, I do think he should be kept in the loop. I think you got to hire the right guy for him, but I don't think he's like making the decision.
Yeah. And I mean, also too, I don't think it's, even wrong to explain to him being like, hey, we're going with this guy. Here's why. I mean, it's not like it's not even sitting here like.
I don't even think he expects to like
have
major involvement. To be honest, like I don't even know if he expects any involvement. So, I think. I mean, even DJ Moore was asked about recently. He was like, "Look, if they want me to give input, I will, but like the decision makers are going to make those decisions." So, Big Block Chevelle, watch us win out with Brown. I mean, if they win out, I don't know what else he can do. I don't think that means he's a lock to get the job, but I think he'd be the favorite for sure. Lucas Prang, I don't know why people are so against Thomas Brown. Who cares if it's not an offensive mastermind like Johnson? I mean, he is an offensive guy. He said this guy's a head coach. Well, let's see, though. Is he saying all the right things? Yes. Am I impressed with the guy? No doubt about it. Is he already an upgrade just from what looks like a head coach compared to Matt Eberflus? Absolutely. Let's see how the games go, Colin. At the end of the day, like these quotes sound awesome, and I'm a sucker for press conferences, but it's about winning. I mean, if you go out there and go 1-4 and you blow a couple games or something, it's like, well, I'm glad the guy sounds more confident and the players seem to respect him more. But if you're still losing, you're still losing.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is he's coached as many head coaches, he's been a head coach in as many NFL games as me, you, and Lucas Prang. So at the end of the day, he's got to go out there and prove it. He's got 5 chances to do it, and we'll see what he's got. And it's not to even discredit him or even, cast aspersions, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's just the facts. Like, hey, show us. You've talked a good game. Let's see how you perform against San Francisco, against some division rivals, against Seattle, and see how it ends.
Yeah, and I want to make my stance clear. Like, I'm rooting for this guy. Like, the perfect world is that he just blows you away. Because, again, I think the worst-case scenario is this guy leaves your building and he's awesome somewhere else. So I'm impressed with him. He seems to be well-organized. I like his no-nonsense mindset. I think the Bears need more of that. He's very direct. But, like, is it going to translate to wins? We'll see. We got 5 of these games coming up against some tough teams. Let's see if they can win a few of them. Sitch Lover, did Poles want to keep Flus in the beginning of the year or move on? Did Poles even want Flus, or was it George? Kaplan said it was all George. Clarify, please. I wish I could. That's the unfortunate reality is you've seen all kinds of reports. You've seen reports on one side. This was Poles through and through. Yes, there were finalists, but he was given the opportunity to expand the search once he got the job, and Flus was his guy. There's, on the other side of things, Poles was basically forced into him. I don't even know it's true at this point. And honestly, that's discouraging because it makes me question what's going to happen this time. Now, Kevin Warren's here this time. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. Poles is in place from the beginning. It's not a simultaneous GM head coach search, so you would hope that George just stays out of the way this time, and I think he will. But I would just be guessing at this point, Colin. Like, there's been so much reported at all different angles. I think that it is what it is. Here's what I do believe. I do think that if Ryan Poles badly enough wanted Flus gone after last year, he could have made that happen, and he didn't. He brought him back, and he's got to own that one. Regardless of how much he was influenced initially, I do think he wanted to give him a third season, and that clearly was a massive mistake. So, we'll see where it goes. We'll see who has the most power in this search. I know Warren said that it would be Poles' final say if there was some sort of debate between a couple of candidates. I'm not sure I completely believed him. It's kind of a blind faith situation, and that makes me uncomfortable. So, yeah, I can't say with any confidence, A, of what exactly happened with Eberflus from the beginning, and B, what's going to happen this time. I think we just have to see how it plays out, unfortunately, which is why, Colin, I'm kind of in this, if one of these premier coaches could be traded for, I would just do it because it minimizes the risk of getting this wrong. Now, it would be so bearish to trade for Shanahan, and he's just a train wreck, but would anybody blame them? It's like you tried to get like the fourth best coach in the league, and it didn't work. Well, I mean, what are people going to say? So, and again, I don't think those scenarios are that likely, but that's just kind of my stance on it because it's hard to have any faith they're going to pick the right guy.
Yeah, and I mean, look, the fact of the matter is like I believe building from the top down when it comes to NFL organizations. Now, obviously, you can't do anything about the owner. You really can't do anything about the president and GM, at least as of right now. I think Poles and Warren are going to keep their jobs, at least for the foreseeable future. If you can nail and get an A at the head coach spot, you take it every day of the week, whether that's Shanahan or McVay or whatever. And then again, even if you don't believe in Caleb, like, he's going to get better. It just plain and simple, the further he's gotten away from Shane Waldron, the better he's played. And
he even had good moments with Waldron.
He did.
It'd be one thing if, like, when they fired him after week 9, it's like he's been a train wreck all season. Like, no, like there was good moments as well. But yeah, I think if you're in this camp of like Caleb isn't the guy, I honestly just think you're like you've been a hater from the beginning and you're not like you haven't been paying attention. Like this guy has dealt with a chaotic situation with the coaching, the front office, all the noise, and he's still found a way to get better throughout the season through it all. So I think that's pretty telling, and he continues to say the right thing. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. I mean, if you were to get Shanahan or McVay, I mean, you think about the best teams in the league, right? McDermott, although he's, kind of fixed his reputation this year with Josh Allen, Reed and Mahomes, Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. Like, if you have that dominant head coach quarterback combo, you're going to have success in this league. And the Bears are a head coach away from having that.
Yeah,
so.
I think so. L'Aquarius Cook with the big one, a 50. We'll get you a helmet sticker. Helmet's in the other room, L'Aquarius, but we'll knock that in for you. Says, come on, Harrison, don't let us down, man. Give the people what they want. I don't know where this came from today, but it's got me entertained, so I appreciate it. Phil Can Grill. Love that name. No way picks for a coach. Let's get Chucky. When is the last time John Gruden was a good head coach in this league? The answer is about 20 years ago. So, and I'm not anti-Gruden. I will say this: I don't think the Bears are the team that would give him a second chance amidst the what's the word I want to use? The inappropriate emails, I guess. I'll leave it at. You could certainly take it further if you wanted. I don't think the Bears are the team to do that. I'm not against a team giving them a chance. That's that team's business, but also just to focus on football, he objectively wasn't good with Las Vegas. Like we've kind of been over this. Like it'd be one thing if he was like 35-15 and the Raiders just got backed into a corner and had to fire him. It's like, no, they were well below 500 and he had involvement in drafting bad players in the first round and it wasn't going that well. So, I'm just not that intrigued by John Gruden.
Shout out to Mike Mayock.
Yeah, just a train wreck of a situation. Dennis again, Aaron Jones or Chubb. Thoughts on our version of Gibbs Montgomery? Both are free agents, might not be kept. If we hire Ben, I think it makes even more sense. Chubb has not looked very good since he's come back, so I don't know what his future looks like in this league. I mean, the fact that he's playing is kind of impressive. I remember thinking that night his career might just be done. I've always liked Aaron Jones. I think him and Swift's skill set kind of overlap. They both can catch the ball well. They're both good in space. So I'm not sure like that's the pairing you go. I think you go Swift, Roschon, and you draft it back in the later rounds. I think that's the most likely outcome there. Colton Bloom, what do we need to do this offseason to win a Super Bowl next season? I mean, can we just get to the freaking playoffs, man? Like that's what was my goal this year. Like, let's get to the playoffs and then go from there. So, unfortunately, that's probably where I'm at again. Now, we'll see how the offseason goes. Maybe something crazy happens and they look like a Super Bowl contender, but I don't know, Colton. You'd probably have to get one of those premier head coaches. Like, you'd have to trade for a McVay or Shanahan, add some big-time pieces in free agency, hit on a couple of draft picks. And obviously, on top of all that, Colin, Caleb would have to take the big second-year jump, which I think he's capable of doing with the right coaching. But it's a lot of if, ands, buts. I mean, I guess the best example of recent years would be about like Joe Burrow, who was having a pretty good rookie season, gets hurt, second year, they just take a huge jump and make the Super Bowl. So it's not impossible, but I would bet against it. Jay Zilla, is it okay if I use clips from the live streams to make it HG highlights, lowlights? I don't want chat sports to want my head on a platter. You could do it. Don't post it on your YouTube, though, because that is ours. But if you want to throw something together and tweet it at me, by all means, I'm not stopping you, Jay Zilla. So, in fact, I'd probably be pretty entertained by it. So, at HGramNFL, you know where to hit me up. All right, appreciate all the super chats. We do have a lot to get to here on today's show. We'll answer more questions as well, so fire away. Hashtag Bears or super chat. We'll get into a mailbag episode. We got some news, injury updates coming up off the top here. We'll get to that in a second. Colin Cowherd sounds off on the Bears and on Caleb Williams. Thought he had some interesting things to say there as well. I give my thoughts and reaction. Busy show coming up here on Chicago Bears Now. I'm Harrison Graham. Here's what we got coming up on this episode of Bears Now by Chat Sports. Jim Harbaugh Bears rumors are resurfacing. What's true? What's false? What could have gone down last offseason? We're going to dive into all of that, plus some major injury updates for the Bears as they get ready for their matchup with the San Francisco 49ers. So going to dive into all of that. Speaking of that matchup, we'll be live on Sunday at 2:15, I think, for a 3:25 kick between Chicago and San Francisco. If you see this thumbnail, you'll know you're in the right place. So subscribe, join us for that, turn on those notifications so you know exactly when we go live. All right, Dan McNeil tweeted this out earlier today. He said, Jim Harbaugh wanted to talk to the Bears in January, but Kevin Warren quashed it via a longtime team employee. Harbaugh expressed interest in the head coaching job. The staffer told Ryan Poles, who told Warren. The president dismissed it summarily. Hashtag I bear witness. Now, if you remember, we reported on this show, and we don't often get scoops or info like that, especially of that caliber, but we did a full video on this, that we were told by someone in Harbaugh's camp that he was interested in this job. Now, I said at the time, doesn't mean you would have gotten him. Still might have ended up going to the Chargers, but we were told he was interested. He played here. He liked the idea of rebuilding this franchise, just like he rebuilt Michigan. Ultimately, the Bears did not fire Matt Eberflus, so it became a moot point. But that is what we were told as well. Mike Lombardi hopped on the Pat McAfee show today and said this. He basically confirmed what that report was, saying Kevin Warren is running that Chicago Bears team, and that story about Jim Harbaugh is completely true. Jim Harbaugh would have loved to work for the Bears and the Raiders. Imagine keeping Antonio Pierce over Jim Harbaugh. That might be worse than Eberflus. But neither team decided to go after him. Now, our good friend Sears Tower, who's been right about a lot of things, said, this is absolutely false. Jim Harbaugh never seriously considered the Bears, and Poles was never going to hire him. Warren didn't squash anything because there was nothing to squash. Now, look, what was true, what wasn't? Again, it kind of goes back to the who really hired Matt Eberflus. I think Poles had final say, but was he kind of forced into him? I don't know. The bottom line is this. why not take a swing? Why didn't they at least put their hat in the ring to try and get this guy? Because of Matt Eberflus, you had to keep Matt Eberflus. I said at the time, Matt Eberflus has not proven enough to not try and go after Jim Harbaugh. If anything, he had proven enough to show you that he likely was not going to be the answer long term. They decided to keep him, whoever made that decision, and give him a third season despite changing quarterbacks, which was my main reason of saying change head coaches, line them up, because even if you don't get Jim Harbaugh, you can get someone else. Albert Breer said he thinks Ben Johnson could have very well taken this job if it had freed up last year. So it's not like it had to be Harbaugh or bust. It's like, oh no, what if we fire Matt Eberflus and we can't get Jim Harbaugh? I don't know. You just pick another coach. Matt Eberflus stinks, and that got even more proven this year. So regardless of this is true, that's true, it's false, it's halfway true, I know this, Matt Eberflus was not a risk worth losing to take that swing. So they absolutely should have tried. I don't know if they would have ended up with him. Maybe it goes the same way anyway and he goes in L.A. I know this, though. You wouldn't have had this Matt Eberflus disaster that took place this season. So that's what's frustrating about it. But you got to focus on the here and now, and that's getting it right this time around. But obviously Bears fans are skeptical, and we should be at the end of the day. What is your confidence level that the Bears will hire the right coach? Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very confident, 1 being not at all. I mean, you'd have to say it's a 2 or less. The only reason you'd slightly raise it is because you feel good about the quarterback you have, and maybe even if it's not a home run, it could still work. But I can't say with any confidence it's higher than a 2 for me. All right, let's take a look at some Bears injury news here in just a moment. There's some good news. There's some not so good news as we are 3 days away from the Bears heading out to San Francisco to play the 49ers. Before we get to that, though, get going with our sponsor, Rocket Money. It's a personal finance app that can help you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It'll help you monitor your spending and lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. Listen to this. Most Americans think they spend about $62 per month on subscriptions. The reality is that number is closer to $300. That is literally thousands of dollars per year. And listen, I got plenty of subscriptions I sign up for and I'm happy to have. But when I first got going with Rocket Money and it listed out all my subscriptions on one screen, there were about 3 or 4 that I was like, yep, not using that. Nope, don't even remember signing up for that. And then now I'm saving a lot of money per month because of it. And you can do the same. Get started today at rocketmoney.com/bearsnow. That's rocketmoney.com/bearsnow. If you want to cancel those subscriptions, click cancel next to the ones you don't want. A few clicks later, they will end up taking care of the rest for you, and they'll deal with the customer service. That way you don't have to, because there's nothing worse than the email of, oh, you sure you don't want to stick with it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I want to cancel this subscription. So sign up today, rocketmoney.com/bearsnow. 5 million users and counting with Rocket Money. You should be one of them. And members could save up to $740 per year. Awesome deal. Take advantage today. All right, you take a look at the Bears injury report. These 6 players did not practice today. Still got Ryan Bates and Roschon Johnson in the concussion protocol. DJ Moore and DeAndre Swift still did not practice with the quad issue. We'll see what Friday looks like. You're hoping they're just trying to get those guys in the training room and get them back up to speed. Got to be tough if both those guys are out, especially with Roschon. We'll talk running back in a minute as well. No worries about Mercedes Lewis, just a rest day. Elijah Hicks, I would expect him to be out still. These 4 players were either limited or full. Keenan Allen, Darnell, Wright, both full participants. That's good news. At least one of DJ or Keenan's going to be back. Keenan's going to play there, so that's a positive. Darnell Wright as well after getting carted off last week. Looks like he's good to go. Kevin Byard limited with the shoulder injury, then Coleman Shelton with the knee. Keep an eye on both of those because you're thin at safety right now. And Coleman Shelton, if he can't go, probably looking at Doug Kramer being your center this week. Let's take a look at running back, because if DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson are both out, I'm still hopeful on Swift. Remember the week before he had this quad thing, didn't practice much during the week, played on Sunday. I'm hopeful he can go. But I would guess Roschon's out. I don't think he's going to clear concussion protocol. That means if they're both out, Travis Homer and Demetric Felton are your 2 running backs. that is not an ideal situation. I mean, Caleb, get the arm loose, bud, because you're going to be throwing it a lot. I don't think Travis Homer is someone who's going to run the ball 20 times. Now, maybe Felton can handle 10 to 12 carries, Homer 8 to 10, but short yardage, you're not going to be running the ball with these guys. So it's going to be a pass-happy plan, which is what it's been mostly recently anyway, because you face some really good stout running defenses like Detroit and Minnesota, but you got your top two backs out. You're going to be throwing even more. So hopefully the Bears are prepared for that scenario. I also wonder if Tyler Scott could play some this week, especially if DJ Moore is out. I've been waiting for it all year. I don't really have expectations at this point, but I think if you think about all the crazy things that have happened this year, one of the most quiet ones that I've been disappointed with is that Tyler Scott has basically not played at all. I don't know what the reason is. I wonder if that could change under Thomas Brown. I'm not sure. But if DJ is out, you would think Scott would at least be active, which he hasn't been in recent weeks, and could at least have an opportunity. Bears 49ers this Sunday. This line has fluctuated a bit. Niners are a 3.5-point favorite. They got a ton of injuries as well, though, with McCaffrey, Jordan Mason on IR. We'll see when it comes to Trent Williams and some of those other guys, Bosa as well. But I like the Bears. Let me know who you got. CHI for Chicago, SF for San Francisco. Who do you guys think wins on Sunday? Maybe I'm a sucker, maybe I'm an idiot, but I think the interim head coach boost will take place here, and I like the Bears to win this game. The Niners are really banged up, not playing good right now. The Bears have actually been playing decent. They just haven't been able to finish games. I think they get one here, 28-20. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Chicago Bears Now. Appreciate everybody for tuning in to this episode. More episodes throughout the weekend to come here on the channel. All right, we got Andres. Mike Lombardi is a stooge and a Bears hater. I never take anything he says seriously, which is completely valid, and it's why I showed the Sears Tower one as well, because he's actually had some scoops here. Lombardi's hit and miss at best, but just kind of wanted to show the different angles and reports that have been out there. Davey Streb, sorry, tuning in late, might have already asked, but what would be the downside of Caleb having a say in who the next head coach is? I don't think there's a downside in like him having input, but I think it could create a couple of issues. One, if it's leaked publicly that he had major say, how does the rest of the locker room feel about that for a guy coming off his rookie year? Two, if he has major say and you pick the wrong guy, the NFL world already isn't taking the Bears seriously right now, Colin. If they kind of just put this in Caleb's hands, which, again, I do not think would happen, and it didn't go well, I mean, that would be just a disaster from a PR standpoint. So, again, I think he'll be kept in the loop. They might have little questions here and there like, hey, we're looking at this guy. This is the type of offense he runs. What do you think about this and that, stuff like that? I think that's completely fair and stuff he should do. But, like, I don't think it's like, hey, we're down to Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Tell me who should be the coach. Like, I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. And I think you kind of just nailed it on the head. It just seems like a lot that, again, they're asking Caleb to put a lot on his plate anyway. Hey, now we want you to help determine our future. Like, again, he'll be involved in terms of, like, he'll be in the know, but I don't expect him to be in the meetings being, like, asking the guys questions.
And look, sure, there might be like hey, this candidate runs this type of offense, this candidate runs that. Which offense do you like better? Which one do you think you can grow in better with? Like, doesn't mean they'll pick the one he says, but, like, I think getting his input on those things is completely valid, but, like, it's got to be, like, just that, just input, like another data point. It doesn't need to be, like, if the pie chart is 50-50 Warren and polls, I don't think it turns into 25% Caleb. Like, I just don't think that's even realistic. So, all right, hashtag Bears Super Chat. We know a few more are in. We'll answer them on the mailbag coming up right here. Hashtag Bears or Super Chat to get your questions in. And, okay, I thought there was more Belichick juice, but not really. Fire away, coaching questions about the upcoming game, the rest of the season, whatever it is. Get those questions in. We'll answer as many as we can. Time for a mailbag here on Chicago Bears Now. I'm Harrison Graham. We got For the Bears saying, I saw a rumor that Jeff Bezos could buy the Bears. Is that true? I wanted to touch on this. I saw this in a comment on another video. A couple other people have asked about it as well. So Bovada put up betting odds of who the next owner could be if the McCaskies were to sell. Now, there is a caveat that if they don't sell the team in the year of 2025, any bet you place, you'd get your money back. So I don't think they've received intel that the Bears are selling. It's more of, you see Vegas do this all the time. It's just like a little easy grab to get engagement on their sports books. And, they're hoping they'll get people to, sign up, create accounts, and bet on other things as well. I think that's really the play here. But there has been a thought out there if and when Virginia dies, and we all die, so it would happen at some point. She is, I think, 101 years old. Could they sell? There's been a thought that could take place. I still question that because owning an NFL team is like the easiest moneymaker on the planet. Even if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to make money. But listen, Bezos owns Amazon, right? So he's doing something right. But yeah, I mean, listen, I know fans are passionate about this. I know they want to sell the team. So if you're one of those, if you want the McCaskies to sell, spam sell the team in the comments. Some people think until they sell, this team's never going to win. And, hey, it starts at the top of the tree, as they like to say. All right, Sunny777, hear me out. Bring McVay as head coach. Keep Brown as assistant head coach with the path to head coach. You get the culture match, proven head coach with a great offense, and Brown develops. I mean, look, that would be like a dream scenario, right? You get McVay, you keep Thomas Brown, he can be the OC and title. Hell, maybe McVay even lets him call plays. I would be surprised by that, but you never know. Now, again, it would come down to Thomas Brown. Like, what other options would he have out there? If he has a chance to be a head coach, I would expect him to do that. If he has a chance to go call plays somewhere, and that wouldn't be the case here, he would probably go do that. He might even just want to leave because he'd be pissed, like, oh, y'all don't think I'm good enough, but y'all want to go get my mentor because y'all don't think I'm ready. These guys have egos. So that would be awesome. It's fun to think about. Last time these two were together, they won a Super Bowl. So I'd be all for it. Would Thomas Brown? I don't know. TJ, who do you got on Thursday Night Football? So we're filming this on Thursday. We'll keep this question in the mailbag for those watching later. I'm going to say the Packers won this game, and I hate cheering for Green Bay, FGB in the comments, but Detroit's pretty beat up. Give me Green Bay 30-27. And when you're watching this, you can either laugh at me or say, oh, maybe his prediction was right. Subscribe to the channel if you want more mailbag questions of yours answered. You got to subscribe and join us every Monday and Thursday when we go live, 4 o'clock Central Time. That is our live schedule. We go live every game day as well, usually hour 15 or so before kickoff, and we will again this week as well, 2:15 Central Time before a 3:25 kick in San Francisco. So get going with us here on Bears Now. Jaden Grimm asks, what do you think about the rumor that Kevin Warren axed the Jim Harbaugh dream? We covered it in our news and rumors segment, but I'll just kind of hit the cliff notes. We heard here at Chat Sports, we had someone in Harbaugh's camp tell us that he was interested in the Bears job. Now, was that a leverage play because he really wanted to go to California? There's been strong reports he wanted to return to the West Coast. Who knows? But what I've said all along is, regardless of if he would have taken this job, the Bears should have pursued it. They should have tried to get him here. He was the clear top candidate available, and they gave Matty Eberflus a third season for some reason. Just an awful decision. The Greenier Bros, save your draft picks, get more depth in the offensive line, get more help with the run defense, and maybe get a new head coach. Yeah, I mean, we'll see on the coach, right? We'll see what Thomas Brown does. But, yeah, you got to stop the run better. Might have to add some linebacker help, too, in that regard. Definitely defensive line and obviously offensive line. And as far as save your picks go, I mean, they didn't trade at the deadline, so they're going to have their picks unless there's some pre-draft off-season trade that could happen, which you never know. It certainly has happened before, but I would expect that they keep those premium picks for draft night. We are sponsored by our friends over at Rocket Money, a personal finance app that has a ton of cool features. They'll help you cancel any subscriptions you no longer want. You can set budgets with Rocket Money. You can also lower your bills by up to 20%, which is a feature of theirs that not as many people should or know about it, and they should. And all you got to do in that regard is send a screenshot of your bill to Rocket Money, and they will find the best deals out there. You might have to switch providers for your phone bill or your electric company, whatever, but they have been known to lower those bills by up to 20%. So pretty sweet deal. All you got to do is create an account and sign up today at rocketmoney.com/bears. Now you can check your credit score, I should say. As well, you can monitor your spending, and you can set budgets. My wife and I have done that, and they send us alerts on a weekly basis to see if we're on track to overspend, underspend for the month, whatever the case may be. I think it's the best finance app I've ever used. I would definitely say that. It's better than my normal banking app. So even if you just want to use it for basic banking features, you can do that. RocketMoney.com/Bears now is the place to go. That link is in the comments and description of this video. Click and get started today. Use our link when you sign up. It helps us out. Okay, Shadow of God. Have you thought about if Genty is available for our first pick, we take him? You have too many needs to take a running back. And look, is Swift a bell cow? No. But I think the pairing of him and Roschon is good enough for now. I think even we've seen it recently. You've had to be a pass-happy offense, and Caleb's already been able to show he can do that. So I think as long as the run game is complementary and it's not bad, ideally, you'd like it to be better next year, but I don't think you're taking Ashton Genty to make that happen. Like, beef up the offensive line, add other pieces, draft a running back later. I'm down for that, but you can't choose Ashton Genty with your first pick, I don't think. DC Viper, these talks of trading for Shanahan or McVay have me intrigued. I want to see what Thomas Brown does, but I want the Bears to hire a winner, period. Also, Bears Super Bowl window opens in 2026. I mean, ideally, it's open when you have this quarterback on a rookie contract. That's the whole point. So while I think having Super Bowl aspirations next year at this point is probably unrealistic, I think you got to approach it as we're trying to win the Super Bowl immediately. So I think typically these things require steps. You got to be a playoff team first. Not many people go from we're a 6-11 team to next year we're winning the Super Bowl, but you gotta take swings now. You gotta get into that playoff mix every year and try to make a run. Predict the score this weekend of Bears versus 49ers. Who wins? What's the final score going to be? I got Bears 28-20. I like their chances. 49ers are beat up, and the Bears have been playing decent ball. Matt Eberflus is gone. You get the interim boost from Thomas Brown. Give me Chicago here. Christian, thoughts on Eric Bieniemy as head coach? You mean the guy that just got fired as UCLA's offensive coordinator? Yeah, I think that ship has sailed. Is it fair or not that he never got a shot in the NFL? I don't know, but I think it's pretty clear that, his next step is probably being a running backs coach in the NFL and trying to rebuild his stock because it didn't go that well in Washington. It looked okay at first, then it kind of fell off. He goes to the college level, and UCLA, I think I read, had the 117th best offense. I mean, I get UCLA doesn't have a lot to work with, but that's pretty abysmal. So, yeah, it would not shock me if the Chiefs brought him back and he's like their running backs coach. I could see that. John Orticelli, what's going on with Gervon Dexter? He started out the year strong, but what have you done for me lately? The sack production has gone down, but at least from PFF, his grades have still held up, and I think he's been able to get into the backfield. But, yeah, you would like to see more splash plays. I said it a few weeks ago, and I'll say it again. I think he's entered he's a solid starter category. Like, he's a guy you can start and be a good player. Can he take that next step? Like, if you told me before the year, he's got 5 sacks right now. If you told me before the year he'd be a 5-6 sack guy, start the entire season, I'd be like, yeah, that's a good step forward. Now, he started so well with the splash plays, you're thinking, man, this guy could push for double-digit sacks. Clearly, that's probably not going to happen. But let's say he finishes with 7 sacks. 2 more sacks the final 5 games. I think that's possible. That's a pretty nice jump in year 2. So, year 3, you're hoping for that big jump, but I still think he's clearly a player that's taken a solid step forward in his second season, which is really all you can ask. Appreciate everybody for tuning in, submitting their questions. If we didn't get to you, my apologies. But you can hit me up on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, at HGramNFL. DMs are wide open. If you got any Bears, NFL, other questions, I'm an open book. Fire away at HGramNFL. All right, we'll get to our last segment here in a second. Johnny says, Harrison, I met you at a frat party at TCU in 2013. Really? Glad to see you doing well. I moved to Houston last year. Beers on me next time you're down here. Bear down. Can you DM me on social media? Because this sounds weird. I want to see what you look like. Like, oh, Johnny. That is fascinating. I didn't go to a ton of frat parties because I wasn't in one, but I'm not dismissing what you're saying at all. So that's pretty funny. So hit me up at HGramNFL. Would love to reconnect.
My guy Harry was living down in Fort Worth, man.
I mean, I had a good time. Good time.
Let's go.
TJ, who do you got on Thursday night?
Oh, we read that.
I actually like the Packers tonight with how beat up the Lions are. It is in Detroit. That usually is big advantage, Detroit, but I kind of like the Packers. No team really has an advantage or disadvantage because both played on Thanksgiving. So I'll say this too. If the Packers win, again, I don't want them to, but if they do, that becomes a pretty interesting 3-team race over the final month because the Lions and Vikings would both have 2 losses and the Packers would have 3. So it'd be nip and tuck. If the Packers lose tonight, they're kind of done in the division because they'd be 3 games back with 4 weeks to go. Yeah. So if they're going to win the division, they have to win tonight. So I actually like Green Bay tonight, unfortunately.
Shadow of God, this is the first time Super Chat that I'm in.
Oh, shout out Shadow of God. 2, 3, 4, 5. Shout out to Shadow of God. Moz Tanker, do you see the yeah, we just talked about this.
Yep.
Again, some of these things, after a while, you hear so many different things, you don't even know what's true and what's not. But my answer is going to stay the same. They should have pursued it. I mean, what did you have to lose? Matt Eberflus? Like, he's gone. So, sure, you couldn't have predicted that, but I think you had at least somewhat of a feeling that Flus may not work out. So I would have taken the gamble. Alex, go after Stefanski. I just don't think he's freeing up. And I like Stefanski, but I wouldn't put him in the category of coach I would trade for. So, yeah, I think Cleveland's keeping him. Dennis.
Thoughts on Tom Pelissero's tweet about Bieniemy?
Have you looked this up?
I have not.
Let me see.
This came in right after you talked about Eric Bieniemy on the mailbag.
Let's see. Statement from Eric Bieniemy's agent, Jason Fletcher. This is from Pelissero's Twitter. Eric and UCLA mutually parted ways as previously planned. Okay, so maybe he wasn't fired. He's still getting paid by the Commanders. After interviewing for head coaching jobs last year, he wanted to stay active and busy, so he decided to go help out Deshaun Foster, who is like his little brother at UCLA, as opposed to sitting out a year. Plan was always to return to the NFL in 2025, and he's looking forward to the opportunities ahead. Even if it's true that they didn't fire him, though, Colin, they had the 107. He's not getting head coach looks. I don't really think he's getting OC looks.
No.
I mean, I think he might in the future, but I think, sometimes it's kind of like Joe Brady in Buffalo. Sometimes you get knocked down a few pegs and you got to go back to being a position coach first. So my guess, he's a running backs coach next year somewhere, whether it's with the Chiefs, whether it's somewhere else. Now, if he wants to be this team's running backs coach, I wouldn't mind that because he's got a lot of experience. He's been around a lot of winning, but I'm not hiring him as my offensive coordinator at this point. He's going to have to rebuild his stock.
Me neither. I think he's just, like you said, he's just got to work his way back up. I mean, it's been really downhill mostly since he's left Kansas City.
Yeah, look, he wanted to leave he never got the head coaching opportunity, so he wanted to leave, and get to run a full offense in Washington. Had mixed results. They fire Rivera, obviously, so he's kind of stuck. Goes to UCLA with his buddy Deshaun Foster, and didn't go that well. Now, UCLA, I've heard, has like no money when it comes to NIL, so that's pretty difficult in the Big Ten. But yeah, I just, my guess, he's a running backs coach next year in the NFL. Michael, thanks for making work go by with these videos. Bear down, hire Shanahan. That is our goal, Michael, to lower productivity at workplaces across the country. Kidding. But, yeah, I appreciate you and anyone else who takes a few minutes out of their day to tune in. Appreciate it, Michael. Savage Gorillas, another first-timer. Imagine if I did what the first guy said, Colin, and then I was ripping these jumping jacks.
Exactly.
That would be entertaining.
I'd super chat.
Appreciate it, Savage. All right, what do we got? One more segment here?
Yep.
Okay. Colin Cowherd had a lot to say about the Bears on a couple different of his shows this week via The Herd. We're going to dive into that, and then we're going to get out of here and go on to our weekend. So appreciate you tuning in. We got about 15 more minutes here. Fox Sports commentator Colin Cowherd had a lot to say when it comes to the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams. We're going to dive into that coming up here on Chicago Bears Now. My name is Harrison Graham. Before we do that, we are getting closer and closer to 111,000 subscribers. Triple ones. Help us get there. We got the latest news, rumors, my opinions, and analysis on this football team on a daily basis. Join the 110,000 strong by hitting that subscribe button. It's free. Okay, here's Colin Cowherd on the Bears. And you know what's crazy? He's kind of been a hater for a while. And listen, I don't necessarily blame him. The Bears are poorly run, yada, yada, yada. It's kind of easy to pick on the Bears. But he kind of had an epiphany this week. He's on board with the Bears as being a good coaching job, at least in this cycle. He's kind of done a complete 180 after initially being like, I don't know if this is a good job. Here's what Cowherd had to say. A lot to get to here. Kevin Warren said this was a really good job, and at first I thought, give me a break. But then I started thinking, well, there were questions about the Chargers, but they had the quarterback. All of a sudden, you're like, yeah, they got the coaching staff right. They already had the quarterback. And I thought that was a pretty interesting point because a really good quarterback and coach can overcome a lot of dysfunction in an organization. And I'll just say this, out of the openings right now, say what you want about the Bears. They're poorly run, ownership, yada, yada, yada. Is it really that close out of these three teams what the best opening is? The Saints have like negative $85 million in cap space. They're in cap hell, and that's for a team that's not that talented right now. The Jets have a nut as an owner in Woody Johnson. Like, he is a complete psycho. Aaron Rodgers is terrible. They have no answer at quarterback moving forward. I guess they could have a high draft pick. Maybe they find someone in the draft, but that's not a great situation. And then you got the Bears, who have Caleb Williams, over $80 million in cap space, 3 picks in the top 55, a lot of other young talent. Like, you could do a lot worse than the Bears right now. It is easily the best open job so far. Now, could a job open up that's more attractive for certain coaches? I think that's possible. You know, the Dallas Cowboys could open up, but you got to work for Jerry. Jacksonville? Cincinnati's the one where, yeah, the owner's cheap, but they do have Joe Burrow. I mean, that's pretty appealing. Are the Giants that appealing? Even with the high draft pick, if that opens up? The Raiders in that division with those coaches? I don't know. I mean, I'd say at worst the Bears would be second out of all these teams. Maybe Cincinnati's more attractive, but Cincinnati doesn't hold the Bears jock when it comes to like allure and history. And if you bring the Bears a Super Bowl, that's way more meaningful than the Cincinnati Bengals. Cowherd kind of gets to that here too when he compares the Bears and the Jags, because he kind of got into, okay, young quarterbacks, Caleb and Trevor. He doesn't think Cincinnati will open up, so he talked about these two. He said, I was thinking about these two jobs, talking about the Bears and Jags. In Chicago, if you win, you're a rock star. Chicago had Oprah, Jordan, Ditka, etc. Jacksonville, they're opening a Chipotle next Wednesday. Hey, I like Chipotle. It matters more in Chicago, he says. It's big. yeah, the division is tough, but Trevor Lawrence or Caleb Williams? Kind of saying, Trevor's hurt a lot. He hasn't lived up to the billing. Caleb's overcome a lot in his early career here. We'll talk about what he said about Caleb in a minute. Listen, again, outside of maybe the Bengals, objectively, and I'm the Bears guy, I get it, but you're telling me those other jobs are more appealing than what the Bears potentially could have here with Caleb Williams and these young pieces and the cap space and the draft picks and all that stuff? I just don't see it. I don't see the Las Vegas Raiders being a better job. I just don't. So it's one of those situations where, yeah, it's not the best job of all time. It's open for a reason because there is dysfunction here. But if you get the right coach with this quarterback, you can overcome some of the chaos within the organization. What do you think? Will the Bears be the best open job this year? Type Y for yes, type in for no. If the Bengals don't open up, I say yes, because I think you got a lot in place here to work with. Still some holes on the roster. Trenches need to be better, but you got money to do that. You got draft picks to do that. So I think the Bears are actually in a decent spot. We've said it all year. If the Bears had a league average head coach, they'd probably be 7-5 or 8-4. You're in the playoff picture if you have that. Well, they had Matt Eberflus, and we all saw where that got us. So why the Bears job? Some of the things I've already mentioned. Well, you got a chance to develop Caleb, the number one pick, who's already shown a lot this year. There's young talent on the roster. DJ, Rome Odunze, Darnell Wright, Braxton Jones is a solid player. Swift, Roschon, Cole Kmet. Defensive side, Montez Sweat, Jalen Johnson. We'll see if Brisker can come back. Kyler Gordon. I still like Tyreek Stevenson as a talent. TJ Edwards. You've got pieces to work with here. Jervon Dexter. Cap space, over $80 million. I think it's sixth most in the NFL right now. Premium draft capital, 3 picks in the top 50 to 55 in this upcoming draft. Don't forget that Carolina second-rounder Chicago has. That's a lot to like if you're a head coach candidate. Now, there are things not to like. Well, there's a reputation that your ownership is cheap. Will they open up the pocketbooks more for a coach this year? We'll see. The organizational structure is a bit abnormal. The GM and the coach don't report to the owner. They report to Kevin Warren. Do candidates like that? I would guess most would prefer to report to the owner. Poor recent history. You've picked bad coaches. The stigma of the organization kind of stinks. That's something to consider if you're a candidate. And you are in the hardest division in the NFL right now in the NFC North. And I think you will be for at least a few years, especially with Green Bay and Detroit, because they have guys under contract. Green Bay super young. We'll see what happens in Minnesota with their QB situation. But, there are reasons against the job. And listen, like I said, no open job's perfect. It's open for a reason. The Steelers didn't open up. You know why? Because they're well-run and they have a great coach. I mean, there's a reason why certain jobs open up all the time. But I still think this Bears job, compared to other ones that have or will open up, is a more appealing one. And that should give you a decent chance to get a better coach than the Jacksonville Jaguars. But obviously the Bears got to prove they can hire the right coach as well. More to come here, but I do want to tell you about our sponsor, Rocket Money. We appreciate Rocket Money for sponsoring this episode of Chicago Bears Now. It is a personal finance app that can help you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and help you lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. With Rocket Money, I have full control over my subscriptions and a clear view of my expenses. I can see all of the subscriptions all on one screen. And if I see something I don't want, Rocket Money can help me cancel it with a few taps. I love how the dashboard of this app shows me this month's spending compared to last month, so I can clearly see my spending habits. Plus, they'll help me create a custom budget and keep me on track, which is very important, especially if you're like me and you've got a mortgage and a 19-month-old in daycare and all these other bills. I got to really stay on top of this stuff, and Rocket Money has helped me do that for the last year and a half. And they'll help you. RocketMoney.com/Bears now is the place to sign up. They have saved their users a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions alone, and members of Rocket Money can save up to $740 per year when using the app's full features. Think what you could do with over $700. You could go on a vacation, you could go on several nice dinners, you could start a college fund, whatever it is. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Go to rocketmoney.com/Bears now to get started today with Rocket Money. Okay, we've talked about more of the Bears side of this from Cowherd's standpoint. Well, a big reason for this, I think, is that Cowherd is a Caleb believer. And look, he's a USC guy, so, maybe there's a little bias there. But USC, by the way, even worse this year, just a mess. But here's what Cowherd had to say about Caleb. He said, he's having a really good season, but since the team is 4-8, everyone is freaking out. And we do this, we get paralyzed on records, but if you contextualize anything, take out the record for a second. If I said to you, going into the season for the Bears through 12 games, Caleb Williams has as many touchdown passes as Jalen Hurts, he's passing for more yards per game than Justin Herbert and Kyler Murray, has a higher completion percentage than Trevor Lawrence in the toughest division in football, you'd be pretty impressed, right? He also just set the rookie all-time record for most passes thrown without an interception at 212 and counting. He's on his second play caller. The head coach just got fired. He has more 100-plus passer rating games than Patrick Mahomes with this mess of a franchise hovering around him. And I've been pretty strong in defending Caleb this year, even when he was going through a rough patch. It's like, guys, this coaching situation's a mess. Waldron's a train wreck. Eberflus is awful. And, they should have kept Justin. When you read all that, just putting it into words, more 100 passer rating games than Mahomes, more yards per game than Herbert and Kyler Murray. Again, I'm not sitting here acting like Caleb Williams has had the greatest rookie season of all time. But when you factor in the chaos that this team has undergone, the coaching, the dysfunction, the players and coaches seemingly going back and forth, and how Caleb has handled it publicly in the media, I'm pretty impressed. And the fact that he's found a way to weather this all and improve as the season has gone on, that gives me a lot of hope moving forward, especially if you get the right coach, which Cowherd is saying, I think this job's pretty good, and I agree with them. And he also added this, they're losing close to NFC North teams, the three best teams in the NFC right now, by the way. Lost by a combined 7 points. Field goal blocked against the Packers, otherwise you win that one. Losing overtime to the Vikings, your defense is just playing prevent. And then against the Lions, we saw what happened last week, just the complete malfunction at the end of the game where your coach didn't take a timeout, your offense wasn't urgent enough, whoever you want to blame there. A game that at minimum should have had a field goal attempt to go to overtime against the best team in football. They're right there. But it doesn't matter if you're close. You have to start winning these games, which is why the head coach is so critical, especially in this division with teams that are coached extremely well. Cowherd's final thoughts for this. If you're truthful and honest, at the end of the year, you'll look up and say, look up and go, we have our quarterback. I agree. I already feel that way. Even if it's up and down the rest of the way, I'm yeah, I've seen enough that if this team has the right coach, if they check a few more boxes with their roster building, Caleb's going to be really, really good. He's better than Trubisky ever was. He's better than Fields was, certainly as a rookie and as a passer, than he ever was. This guy's different. Are you going to fail him again? Are you going to fail this guy like you failed the other ones? I'll tell you this, right now I'm filming this on December 5th. If they fail him here, he will succeed elsewhere. This isn't a Trubisky situation where he's just going to be a backup forever. He will be good for another franchise if the Bears fuck this up. So don't fuck it up. It's pretty simple. Hopefully I say it's simple. The Bears have a history of messing these things up, but hopefully this time is different. And it's why I've advocated, and Cowherd did too, trading for a Shanahan, trading for a McVay if it's on the table. Not saying it is, not saying it's likely to be, but if it is, that is a route you should consider because that reduces the risk of picking the wrong coach. Do the Bears have a franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams? Type 1 for yes, type 2 for no. You guys know where I stand. I think most of you guys are with me, and even some of you guys who weren't earlier in the year have come around. 1 for yes, 2 for no. He's the guy. It's about the coach. That's it. I've said it. I'm going to continue to say it. It's absolutely critical that you hire the right guy. I don't care if you have to trade for him. I don't care who it is, whether it's Thomas Brown, whether it's Ben Johnson. I don't care if it's a defensive guy. Whoever it is, it's got to be the right guy. You can't afford to miss here, so that's on Ryan Poles. That's on Kevin Warren. Clock's ticking. They got to figure it out. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. More to come. Bears, Niners on Sunday. See what Thomas Brown can show in his first game as the interim head coach. My name is Harrison Graham. We will see you guys then. Savage, he already did a first-timer. He's trying to bend the system. Trying to bend the system. He says, which coach do you think called Mike Florio about why he isn't talked about for the Bears head coaching job? You got any theories on that, Colin?
I thought about it like after we, did the video on it initially, and then we talked about the McVay side of it. Those two seemingly could be likely. I'm also just trying to think, which head coach would actually reach out to Mike Florio?
That's kind of what I started thinking about. I'm like, I don't follow Florio well enough to know who he gets what teams he gets more scoops for than others, right? Like Albert Breer's a good example right now. Since Poles has been the Bears GM, he's been tapped in with the Bears. I don't know who Florio's tapped in with. Yeah. Now he's been around a while. He's probably got contacts in all 32 buildings, but I would just be guessing.
There's also, listen, not calling him a liar. Maybe he's stretching it a little bit.
It's possible.
Maybe he is.
He also could have gotten a message back of and he bended the truth of what the guy said.
Right.
Maybe someone texted him and was like, why didn't you consider other people on that list? And not straight up why didn't you put me on that list, right? There's a difference there. So
yeah,
who knows?
You nailed it. Again, if I'm an NFL head coach, I'm not in the middle of an NFL season reading a Mike Florio article and being like, I wonder why I'm not included in this.
Well, I'll say this: if you're out of it, you're not in the playoff hunt. B, I do think these guys pay way more attention than we give them credit for, than we would think.
Maybe.
Another couple thoughts I had were what if Stefanski, because he's I'm stuck with this Watson situation.
Maybe.
But I'm not going to quit. I can't quit, but,
a coach that's trapped.
Maybe there's a situation where they would be open to a breakup there, but, you trade a fourth-round pick to get him or something like that. I don't think he'd be in the category of, here's 2 firsts.
No.
But I'd trade a day 3 pick for Stefanski, probably.
I give a 4th.
Bears technically don't have one right now, but maybe it's a future 4th or maybe go 5th. Who knows? Hunter, if the game tonight ends in scoregami, will you give one last consideration towards hashtag Harrison Grams? That's a 1 in 100 chance. I'll give it consideration. You guys don't have to know how much consideration I'll give it, but I'll give it consideration. If it's scoregami, Hunter, DM me to remind me. How about that? Louie, did you see the SI article about Bezos buying the Bears, supposedly from Florio? I just saw the betting odds. I have not seen an article on this, so I'll look into that. If Bezos bought the Bears from the McCaskies, that would be amazing. New ownership would be I think really well received from this fan base. So, again, I don't expect it, but we'll keep eyes on that. That's for sure.
Soldier Field, presented by Amazon.
Would the new stadium just be Amazon Stadium? Honestly,
yeah.
I could see it happening. All right, we're out of here. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Shout out to Colin for producing. My name is Harrison Graham. We got videos between now and Sunday, but join us back live Sunday, 2:15 or so, for a little 3:25 kickoff against the 49ers. We will be back on the saddle, I should say. Colin, enjoy your weekend.
You too, man.
I will enjoy mine, and hopefully all of you do as well. We are out of here. Bear down.